Sin City. Saturday night. Fight night. Any given weekend, this place is the entertainment capital of the world. When combat sports shines brightest on the Las Vegas Strip. Boxing and mixed martial arts need some new voices. And Franchise Sports Media got them for you. Join Kalani Lua and Griff and Kemp each week as they bring you news and hot takes from inside the octagon and the ring. Get your popcorn ready. It's showtime. FSM's main event starts right now.
What's going on, fight fans? Welcome back to the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. As always, we are your co-hosts. I'm Griff and Kemp.
Kalani Lua.
Man, it's been a minute since we've been back here.
Been a little while, but here we are back again. And man, do we got some stuff to get into. Cannot wait.
Cannot wait. It's been a minute since the card, but I think we would be doing an injustice to the sport of MMA if we did not discuss the loss of one of the greatest fighters the UFC has ever had on the roster in Amanda Nunes, as she ends up retiring at UFC 289 as the bantamweight and featherweight women's champion of the world. My brother, just give me your initial thoughts after you saw the Lioness decide to drop those gloves in the middle of the octagon.
I mean, it's the greatest women's fighter we've ever seen. One of the baddest fighters, male or female, we've ever seen. She truly accomplished everything you would want to accomplish within her time in the cage. Granted, if she could have been able to get down to 125, maybe she'd have won for the title there. She has defeated every female fighter that has held a title at 135 and 145.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah. Yes,
what?
She has. Yes, she did.
You look at the fact that not only did she beat them, Griff, she mollywopped quite a few of them. Misha Tate, choke you out. Bye-bye. Ronda Rousey, give me that. Chris Cyborg, thank you for coming.
Yep.
Holly Holm, good night. I mean, she just went in there and she dominated time and time again. Even when she fell to Juliana Pena, she bounces back, regains the title. You see the one, and it's a constant highlight that they show. But when Pena was rushing her, Nunes is stepping back, hits her with a right. Pena feet go off the ground and flies.
Yes.
Granted, Pena's tough as nails, tougher than a $2 steak. She finished out the fight. Very good rivalry. But Pena is mad that she retired. Because she's like, we were supposed to have a trilogy. But it's like, hey, listen, I've done everything I'm supposed to do as the champion. Won both titles, defended both titles. I've literally have knocked out and beaten the best of the best here. What? Valentina Shevchenko twice, even though people don't feel like she won the first one. She won. Okay? It is what it is. Okay?
Yeah.
But Amanda Nunes, the greatest women's fighter of all time in the sport of mixed martial arts. It was a hell of a career. We were both blessed and fortunate to have watched as many of her fights as we did. Listen, never say never. There might be a time where, I don't know, in a year or two, maybe she tries to come back. Who knows? We've seen George St. Pierre come back. We've seen John Henry Cejudo just came back. We might see her make one more appearance in there, but right now, blessings to her. Mazel tov. It is awesome. I was thankful. I was thankful that I saw her career from when it started to when, and just to see, wow, this is one of the moments I can look back and say that I was around for that fight. One of the greatest of all time. Salute.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really like what you're saying, kind of the whole thing about Juliana Pena and her being there cage side, watching the fights, her reactions, which I actually really like Juliana Pena. Don't get me wrong. I think she is a great fighter. I think that the fact that she got a dub off the Lioness is very, very impressive. But it was just the most petty stuff you've ever seen when you watch the videos of her. She's booing her when she's giving her retirement speech. She's talking mess the whole time. I'm like, show us some class. Show some class, all right? Michael Jordan hangs them up. You don't see everybody else just absolutely preying on his downfall right then and there at the retirement speech. I mean, give her...
Larry Bird say, well, he never beat me in the postseason.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So give her a moment, take a step back. But I think, which, by the way, I just want to say, your boy did call this one out a little bit. If you've been keeping up with our articles with Franchise Sports Media and the UFC 289 preview, go check it out. Let's
go check out the preview of 289
Just saying, you want to see a fortune teller, you go read that article, my boy.
Yeah, you did nail it, Griff. All jokes aside, you did nail it on that one.
Yes, but like the reason I felt when I was writing that she was going to retire, why I felt like I had an urge that this might be closer to the end, was really because of that loss to Juliana Pena. I mean, she came back and gave redemption, and honestly, after that second win, after that second fight, she got the win. It really did make that first loss look like a fluke. But she, when you see a fighter like that, look at Valentina Shevchenko. And I forget the fighter she was with, but before her last fight, the fight before, she barely gets out of there with a win. You and I believe we were watching that one together.
We were.
She barely gets the win, scrapes by. A lot of people were questioning the call on that one. And then she goes in and she loses her belt. She doesn't look as good. And it's just, when fighters have that one loss or that one fight that they just don't really look that crisp, it's almost like when fighters fall off the cliff, it's so sudden. It's so instant. And that's the thing, though. The Lioness didn't fall off a cliff, but you could really tell maybe the drive wasn't there anymore. The challenge wasn't there anymore. She's made her money. She's set. She's got a second kid coming on the way. There was more reasons to leave the sport than there were to stay. And I think the career she had, it's almost an injustice to say she's just the greatest women's fighter of all time. She's one of the greatest overall fighters the sport of MMA has ever had.
Yeah, very without doubt.
So I think, kudos to her. Like you said, it's something where anybody who was, talking mess or looking down at UFC 289 compared to the rest of the great cards we've had in 2023, you really missed out. You really missed out on a historic moment in MMA, seeing one of the greatest ever finish off a career on a high note, something most fighters don't get to do, and we call it a career.
Well, and you brought up champions who have these long title reigns, who, who seem like they lose their drive. Well, one, I don't know if it's always losing a drive. Griff, you also got to think, the great boxing middleweight champion, maybe the greatest middleweight champion of all time, Bernard Hopkins have something to say about it, but Marvelin Hagler said, it's hard to go running 5 miles when you're waking up in silk sheets. And I just think when you're a long-range champion, it's like, okay, and like we said, she was mollywopping everybody.
Yes.
She was knocking everyone out. So then you start looking at it and say, okay, if I'm this much better than everyone else in my division, how am I supposed to motivate myself? We seen BJ Penn, how he had to force himself to hate guys and create all this trash talk, and he would, even when it wasn't real, that's how he got himself motivated for it and whatnot. We see some champions, when they win the title, I don't want the title. You guys keep it title. I defend it, and this and that. You have to find ways to motivate yourself, and this is also why I suggest you really got to appreciate guys such as Anderson Silva, John Jones, Kamaru Usman, Georges St. Pierre, long-reigning, and there's others, long-reigning champions who continuously go out there and dominate because it's difficult. And then, too, the other reason is this. You got to look at it. When you're the standard for that long, the rest of the division, that's what they're training for. So you got everyone else. They're coming up to training for you. I'm not training to fight Shogun Rua, Lyoto Machida, Rampage Jackson, Forrest Griffin. I'm training for you. Or I'm not training for Ronda Rousey or Chris Cyborg or Valentina. I'm training for Amanda Nunes. So you go in there and you do what? 2, 3, 4 training camps. Remember Cody Garbrandt when he defeated Dominic Cruz? One of the reasons he was able to go in there and defeat Dominic Cruz, he had like 3 training camps as a sparring partner for the opponents at Team Alpha Male going against Dominic Cruz. So I already had 3 camps where a part of me was already mentally and physically picturing you as my opponent. Whether I had to mirror what you do or just go in there and just give... I'm in those training sessions, going over the film work, talking to the coaches. So now when I face you, it's not that hard because I've been training for you for so long. You might have just trained for me for the last 6 to 8 weeks. I've been training for you for years. Yep. So I think that's another issue is that a lot of times, you get these fighters, they've been taking on these challengers who come up, and at some point, somebody trained for you long enough where it's just like, holy hell, the young lion is now skinny the older lion. And that is why it's so imperative that these fighters switch up coaches and camps from time to time, get new blood, new ideas, fresh looks, so they can stay on top of their game as long as possible.
Absolutely. And, my last take on this, on the retirement of Amanda Nunes, you wonder now, how does the women's divisions, regardless of weight class, how does the entire women's section of the UFC look going forward?
Looks good.
It looks good. There's some promising fighters for sure. But now it's like, can any of them really capture that same stardom that Amanda Nunes did?
Don't we do this every time?
Don't we do what?
Don't we do this in every sport? Oh no, Peyton Manning's retiring. The NFL, we're good. Some kid named Patrick Mahomes comes around. Basketball, Kobe Bryant just retired. Rest in peace. Oh my God, what's he gonna do? Giannis comes around. Oh my God, Amanda Nunes. We got people. It's a roster full of people. Yeah, 145 is probably gonna go away because there's nobody in that division.
Yeah,
the division's fine. Remember Ronda Rousey? When's the last time she fought? Oh, what's it going to be like when Ronda walks away? It's been fine ever since. What's it going to be like with Gina Carano? Griff, I don't mean to cut you off, buddy, but we've seen this. What's going to happen when Anderson Silva leaves? When John Jones leaves? When George St. Pierre leaves? It's been fine ever since.
Yes.
It's been fine. What happens when your boy leaves? What happens when the biggest moneymaker in the UFC leaves? It's been fine. So can we get past this narrative? I don't mind you going down this road, but can we take a different turn than, well, what's it look like? What's it going to be? We've seen this before.
I want to know, my biggest concern, and it's not necessarily like it's going to hurt the brand of the UFC. I'm more concerned, though, when a company like the UFC, who has a background in not really, they weren't always the supportive of women joining the UFC. Dana White himself has had comments on record where he was not.
Where are you going though, man?
You're going like 13 I'm giving the background. I'm saying though,
pay-per-view she's headline
with the women's all division of the women in UFC. It hasn't had the greatest support, and so now that you lose a star like that, yes, and you're 100% right. When we lost Ronda Rousey, nobody knew that we were about to get Amanda Nunes coming up right behind her. I'm just saying, I hope soon. And Alexa Grasso, the second Mexican-born UFC champion in UFC history. She's very promising. Shevchenko might, turn it around and get it going again. But I just hope I hope somebody soon in the women, in any of the women's divisions, really shows that kind of dominance. I hope we get that. I hope, because I'm telling you, a lot of the fights that Amanda Nunes had, and even Shevchenko before her last two fights, they were not showing out pretty well. They were not giving a show. They were simply there to get an absolute mollywop ass whooping.
Well, but at the same time, that just goes to show how good they were. The rest of the division, it might be competitive for the next few fights, because now we're trying to shuffle out. Well, who's good? Who deserves to be at the top of the spear? Who's not supposed to be up there? Et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to be fine. Mackenzie Dern is out there. Angela Hill is out there. Wayne Zhang Lee is out there. She's about to have a fight come up. Rose Namajunas, Thug Rose is still out there. Like, we're going to be fine on who emerges from it. The good thing is we don't know who it's going to be right now. So that's what makes it more exciting. Now as you watch these fights, especially for the top tier, now you wonder who's going to be the one to take that step. Again, it might be a fight or two, but Amanda Nunes didn't raise a stardom right away. It took her a little bit of while. The only one you could say rose a stardom right away was Ronda Rousey. Yeah. Everyone else, it was a process, and we've been fine. Let's get over, what's going to happen with the women's division now? Guess what happened to 125 when Demetrius Johnson, the long-reigning champion he was, when he left? Guess what happened to 125, Griff?
What was that? What happened?
It's been fine ever since. We got 1,700 fights of Figueroa versus Moreno, and it was split down the middle. And they're about to have another fight. Wasn't that division supposed to go away? What happened when Henry Cejudo took over? He's going to close out. It's fine.
That might be the most fun
division right now. What
happened
when Aldo lost his title and, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then the look of the Irish ran out. 145 has been thriving. Max Holloway, Volkanovski. When your boy knocked out Jose Aldo, was anybody saying, well, Alexander Volkanovski is going to be the next? No!
Because they expect.
We're going to be fine, Griff. RELAX.
Do not quote, all right? Do not quote that. I don't want to hear no Aaron Rodgers, none of his quotes on it.
Former Packer now.
I don't care what he is, all right? He's irrelevant to me.
Well, when you start bringing up old stuff like the Bears of 85 big fans, when you start going that far back, I got to bring it up. I got to stab you with it. Let's continue on here.
That's fair. You're right. Let's continue on. So, let's talk about the main event fight at UFC Fight Night on June 17th. We had Marvin Vettori versus Jared Cannonier, middleweight bout. Goes 5 rounds, goes the distance. Jared Cannonier ends up setting the record for the most strikes landed in a single fight. And in the end, Jared Cannonier gets the victory via unanimous decision. What are your thoughts on the fight, and what are your thoughts on the middleweight division in general going forward after this?
Jared Cannonier's fist must hurt.
No, they don't
He
look
was
long.
tagging the hell. Now, granted, it was a war, but it was one of those wars, Griff, where if we're watching a football game,
Yeah.
let's just say it was 35-17. On the scoreboard, it does not look close, but that was a battle. It was a couple plays that gave that distance, but if you watch the game, no, that was a competitive matchup. And that's what I felt in watching this particular matchup as well, is that while Jared Cannonier dominated in his fashion, went out there and set the record for most strikes landed in any UFC fight, I did feel like, well, Marvin Vettori's out there showing his gritness, showing his toughness. He's not going away. Like the Terminator, this dude right here from Italy, he said, buongiorno, and he's out there just saying, bring it on, sucker. And it's one of those where you almost got to say, hey, Kenny, I know you dominated, but boy, don't you relax, because this sucker right here might catch you. And that's what I was kind of wondering. If in the 5th round, was he going to catch Jared Cannonier with anything? Possibly. Was he going to be able to clip him? Because again, Griff, like we talked about, when you're dominating that long, you know how people tend to relax. Oh, I got this in the bag. I'm up on points. And you kind of try to cruise. And then what happens? He tries to turn it on and bam, 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 pulls off the comeback victory. So I thought it was an entertaining bout. Again, one of those where if you looked on paper, maybe the fight card itself didn't stand out as a must-see, but in watching it, very exciting stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, Jared Cannonier, we know he recently got his title shot with Izzy and ended up, losing that fight. Izzy got the decision and goes the full distance. People, and that really started spewing the narrative of Izzy being a boring fighter because dancing around and whatever. I look at this.
When you're at the top, it gets lonely.
It gets real lonely. I looked at this fight and I thought a couple things. First off was, though Cannonier broke a record like that, landing how many strikes he landed in that fight, I mean, amazing. Looks great on him. Also, despite the loss, it looks great for Marvin Vettori because he set the record for most strikes absorbed and hooking in a fight and not getting slept.
Yeah, but that's not really a record.
Hey man, you don't want that record, but
I hear what you're saying. I do.
Exactly. You don't want it, but he got it. I mean, you got to be a tough son of a gun to get hit that many times, get that bludgeonly beaten, and still stay on your feet, go all the way to the judge's decision.
How much damage does that dude see you in the long run, though? I'm not talking about the long run when you're like 60, 70, 80 years old. No, these men and women know the sport they signed up for, but that much damage. Remember Junior Dos Santos?
Yep.
My favorite heavyweight.
Yep.
But remember when he took those beatdowns from Cain Velasquez? He was never the same JDS after that. So then you got to wonder, for someone like Marvin Vettori, okay, you lost to Izzy.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking this much punishment right here. You got to wonder, like, hey, buddy, do you maybe need to go back to the drawing board, wipe it clean, reevaluate some things, change up a few things? You're tough as nails, but tough as nails is only going to get you so far. And this isn't the way you want to go if you want to be known as a punching bag at 185.
That's a good point, and it kind of leads into what I was saying, or my next thought on the fight. It really kind of made me think about the middleweight division in general and the state it's currently in, and it's got a big problem. It's in a transition period. Right now, we have Izzy Adesanya, who's still the reigning champ. We had that fun little period with Alex Pierre and him, but now that Izzy's got the belt and Pierre has moved up to 205, you think to yourself, okay, right now there's a lot of talks of who's next for Izzy Adesanya, and a lot of people are talking about his next fight going about 2 months after we get International Fight Week in July. And on that same card, we're going to be having Robert Whittaker versus Duplessis, Dracus Duplessis.
Yeah.
And that is very disheartening. It's very disheartening to know that I don't think it's confirmed that fight has been stated as a number 1 contenders fight. Whoever wins that one's going to get the next title shot. There's just murmurings, most likely. And that's disheartening, man. I mean, what? So he's either, the next challenge for Izzy is going to be either Robert Whittaker for a 3rd time after he's already beaten him twice, or Dracus Duplessis, who's got 5 fights in the UFC, and his biggest draw to a title shot is him questioning Izzy Adesanya and Ngannou and Usman's roots to Africa. Like, that shouldn't be why you have such a big draw. And also, outside of that, it's also because Izzy's already ran through everybody. Izzy's already made a mockery of everybody else. Yep. So it's like, okay, the guys who have been here in the division for years, they've been the cream of the crop. They've already gotten their shots. They've all missed out on it. You got new guys coming up. You got like a Bo Nickel. You got a Khamzat Chimaev, different guys. But then it's like, okay, when are they going to be ready? When is it the right time for them to get their shot at the champ? How long is the champ going to be here? Yep. The big problem the division has is an Izzy Adesanya dominance problem. And I'm interested to see who he gets paired up with next. He's going to be fighting real soon down the line, probably September, I would guess. I just don't know who they're going to pair him with. And, you know, it's got to be somebody good.
Well, I do hear what you're saying, Griff. But at the same time, like you said, one, it ain't my fault that I've ran through this whole division and no one else has been able to step up. But then two, look, it's been open. You guys are welterweight that aren't able to crack through. You're more than welcome to come up here. Our former champion, Robert Whitaker, was at welterweight.
He was.
Kevin Gaston was at welterweight.
He was.
Why don't you guys come on up here? 205. Come on down. Here, Jared Cannonier was a heavyweight at one point.
He was.
So it's like, hey, look, if you guys want me to fight new opponents, I've already gone up to 205. I'll probably go back up there again at some point. But I've already tried my luck at 205 once. These guys can come back. Jan Blachowicz said that he'd be willing to come down to 185, meet him down there. Maybe that'd be something to try out. Duplessis, obviously, you would want it. And look, I'm not a fan of this piece of shit whatsoever. But then at the same time, if that's how he gets to the title fight, that's how he gets to the title fight. Colby Covington literally is in the UFC because he became a villain or a troll or whatever. It is what it is. Like, if that's the route you got to go, look, I'm not trying to get on your boy just yet because we're going to talk about him in just a minute. Yeah. But part of his big draw was the ability to run his mouth and cause controversy. Not saying he didn't have victories in the UFC, but if you kind of look at that resume before Aldo, was McGregor truly worthy of a title shot that early in his UFC career? Maybe, maybe not. But again, what makes you interesting? And an interesting fight would be Duplessis versus Izzy if Duplessis can get past Whitaker. That would be an interesting fight. The storyline is going to get very personal, a la Conor McGregor, Habib.
Ooh, it's going to get nasty.
Hopefully no dollies are thrown at buses. But at the same time, that's an interesting storyline. But it's not as deep as it once was because Izzy has dominated everybody. But there's plenty of options out there. There's another guy out there by the name of the Wolf who apparently is supposed to try his luck there. But he might be having a nightmare from Nigeria on his hands, depending what weight class they want to fight at. So we'll see. There are options on the table, but you want to lay back and see how things go out with this particular matchup. Because if it is Whitaker, maybe Izzy says, I've already been there, done that twice. Move on to something else. Go with those other options I laid out. But if Duplessis wins, that's your obvious pick right there.
Absolutely. And to know, Izzy Adesanya has stated on record that he really is hoping for Duplessis to get the victory and to get the victory, a very quick first round victory in order to potentially, hopefully be ready for that fight in September.
Turn around quick.
We'll see what happens. You know, either way, it should be interesting.
Beat his ass.
Beat his ass, man. Moving on. More recent news. Henry Cejudo. He made his comeback. Didn't go the way he expected. Went better than I thought. Went way better than I thought he was going to do. But now, you know, people question whether he was going to be done after his loss to Aljamain Sterling. But instead, he's back. And he's actually going to be fighting on that same card with Sterling at UFC 292 in, I believe, Boston, correct? Boston.
The potted.
Yeah.
Mike Wahlberg. Matt
Damon.
Ben Affleck.
That Ben Affleck's a real handsome fella, right?
That Tom Brady there, that's a jawline from heaven right there. God bless him.
God's a handsome man.
God bless him. Go Celtics. Go Sox.
Go Sox.
Boston Beans.
It's gonna be a good card. He is getting paired up with Chito Vera. Chito. I believe I don't think they're going to be the co-main. They're either going to be the co-main or fight right underneath the co-main event at UFC 292.
Be a hell of a third fight. Be a hell of a third fight on the card.
Absolutely. As Aljamain Sterling takes on Sean O'Malley in the main event. Just off the cuff, what are your thoughts of Henry Cejudo not going back into retirement, staying on the roster, staying active, and now taking on a dangerous fighter in Chito Vera.
Well, we'll obviously talk about more about this fight when it gets closer, but I think it's an interesting matchup. Just goes to show you, one, there's really no easy fights in the UFC. When people talk about, oh, you're being spoon-fed, no, when you get to a certain level, there's no such thing as an easy fight. For someone like Henry Cejudo, gotta take your hats off to him. Like, he's cringeworthy and he leans into it, but he's also like, when I step in that cage, I'm taking on the champion or the next best dude. Like, don't give me guys who are over the hill. Don't give me guys who aren't ready. Give me the absolute best so that, one, I can see if I still belong here. Because as a high-level athlete, Olympic-level athlete, gold medal athlete like himself, he wants to know, where do I stand? Because like you said, against Aljamain Sterling, he showed I'm not over the hill. Maybe some motivation, maybe some tactics I used didn't go the way I wanted to, but I'm still a bad mofo.
He looked elite.
I'm still good. But how good am I? So now I'm taking on someone that's as scary as Chito, someone who a lot of people in the division have feared and ducked and run and hide from. How does he look going out there with him? I'm very excited and intrigued for this matchup. Again, we'll dive more into the breakdown of this as it gets closer. But initial thoughts, I'm intrigued and excited. I look forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'll just say on this fight, if I had to look into the minds of Dana White and the heads of the UFC, some could argue this pairing, the decision to make this pairing was mostly on the side of we need Chito. We need Chito we need him in this game. We need him in this division. His last fight, he lost to Corey Sandhagen. Very close fight. You know, he didn't look his best, but he's still dangerous. And I mean, Corey Sandhagen is it's not a crazy idea that he's gonna get up on you on any given Saturday night. But I think they really, especially how great Henry Cejudo looked against Aljamain Sterling, the champ, especially after a 3-year layoff. He's definitely still elite. They want to make sure Chito, has his opportunity to get redemption, still keep his name up there at the top of the division. Hopefully him and Sugar Sean get a little rematch later down the road. But it should be a great fight. It's going to be interesting as hell. Cannot wait for it. I think last topic. Man. Recently, we've enjoyed absolute pristine television, all right? What are the awards? Emmys? Emmys are for TV. Emmy Award-winning television in The Ultimate Fighter, season 31. All right? 3 episodes in. 4th episode going on tonight as Team Conor McGregor and Team Michael Chandler have been going at it. After the past 3 weeks watching these episodes, what are your initial thoughts on my boy? And the show in general, too. The
show's good, as always. The backstories you hear about the fighters are always good. It's unique to have the prospects taking on the veterans. The layout of the UFC Apex, we get glimpses of it. Looks nice.
It does.
Better than the yellow background walls of the old UFC Center. Yeah. But that's just times with the change. What I don't understand is the idea of doing the house where you get no television, you can't watch movies. Even if they said, hey, what if we just gave you guys UFC Fight Pass and you could just watch stuff off here? Or DVDs and you could just watch movies. Oh, well, we need you 100% focused on this. Why? Because that's what we do in real life? I'm training for fight camp. That's what we do in real life. I don't spend time outside. I don't go to the grocery store. I don't watch television. I'm just sitting in the room. Maybe Robbie Lawler does. Sure, but, he's a little different.
He's psychotic.
But to your boy, couple things.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Of course.
One, no, don't say of course. It's his own doing.
Yes, of course. That's what I'm saying, of course.
One, and I've said this before, you can tell this dude really does love fighting.
Yes.
The art of combat, he loves. And you feel that from him whenever he talks about it or he's around other people doing it. And he just, it's motivating. It's inspiring. It's one of those where you're just like, this is the Conor we all grew to love. Mm-hmm. You also see that when he's out there training with these young guys, there's that young spirit Conor in him of going back to when he fell in love with this sport, trying to show these guys. And again, that both coaches have said it. I'm not going to be able to change your whole game in a short period. So instead of me trying to change it, I'm just going to try to teach you a few things, enhance your stuff, and keep you sharp for the fight. Right? There's that. There's also the fact of him trying to, come to the house, be personable with them. But I got to admit, this dude looks off his rocker at times. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if he forgets about the show, but there's definitely times where he comes off as if, kind of, we're doing a show, right? Oh, wait, what's the show about? You're in it. He doesn't show up to the weigh-ins.
No, he
which
didn't.
is not a good look at all.
No.
And then look, I do appreciate the fact that he's not trying to be in the corner and coach you. I have my coaches for that. I don't mind you being off to the side and cheering while they do that. I don't mind that. But it's one of those where when you see some of the instructions he's trying to give, it's almost like, buddy, that's not really going to help me in my situation. And I can't do what you do.
Right.
On the flip side, very quickly, I've liked what I've seen from Michael Chandler. Not saying he's perfect, but I like what I've seen. He's trying to be engaging with the fighters. He's being there and supportive as much as he can. He's talking with them. And then anytime he comes across Conor, it's one of those where, listen, I'm not here to necessarily be a theater act, but I'm not going to back down from the trash talking either. And you ain't about to just walk over and, oh, you'll do as you're told, and you do all this kind of stuff. Guess what? That's a good line. But when you step in the cage, you do as you're told when that bell sounds. So I've enjoyed the show. It's been fun.
Me, he says.
His fighters have lost.
Yes, Team McGregor is currently 0-3 right now in their fights. 0-3.
So according to you, that's quite all right, because 17 years ago when they won, that's what we worry about.
Well, I mean, 0-3, Conor does have the prospects, and if you do look at some of the greatest fighters.
Who chose them?
He did choose them. He did choose them.
So that's on him.
You can't fully blame Conor for it. They're prospects. A lot of the great fighters in UFC history had slow starts to their careers as prospects. They had a pretty slow start. Ooh, I'm glad you said who. To get started.
Who comes to mind?
Currently,
Who comes to mind?
we have one. Charles Oliveira started his career out in the UFC 2-3. We had Justin Gaethje, who started his record out, I believe, 1-2. Aljamain Sterling started 3-3. Brandon Moreno, again, a 500 record. Jamal Hill, the current light heavyweight champion of the world, 1-1 and 1 no contest. None of them had impressive starts, but outside of Gaethje, with the rest of these fighters, those guys are all in the top 15 of the pound for pound. So everybody has slow starts. When you're a prospect, the fighters, they get better as you go. You get better the more you fight, the farther you go down the line. All right? It's rough when you're fresh and you're fighting guys who've been in the UFC, who have done this, who have faced crazy competition. It's hard to go in there in the cage and fight a vet like that as a young guy. Would you not agree?
I'll eat that humble pie on that one. As soon as you said Charles Oliveira, I said, fuck, he did start off right.
He started rough.
I'll eat humble pie. Look, Justin Gaethje was 17-0 before that, but I'll eat the humble pie. You're right. It's not easy. No. I give you all that. What I was alluding to was the fact that they're 0-3, but according to your logic and what you've used in arguments in recent times, is that it doesn't matter what your current record is what you did in the past that what we're worried about. Or you can be 0-3 now in your last 3 fights, but 7 years ago is what you did in 2016. That's what we're going to celebrate. Yeah,
it's about what you've done in the past and the potential for what you'll do.
It's like, wait a minute, buddy. At some point, you got to move past that. But no, please go on. That was very good, and you set me up for that one because you had all those names.
I do research, baby.
Hey.
Thank you. My final notes on the show. I love what you said. Exactly. We're getting the glimpse of the old Conor, who really, that's what attracted everybody to him in the first place. He's a fire, passionate guy who really loves the sport of MMA. And it's really cool to see him get in there, and actually be training with the guys and actually be doing the work, which, to be honest, Conor's kind of benefited a little bit from being the coach this season. I mean, he's getting more time training with guys, getting a little bit more in there, and, getting fresh fades from guys who eventually go on to get, knocked out pretty quick. But it's a great show so far. I'm looking forward to the rest of the show, especially the episodes tonight. But you know what? That's a good note to end on, brother. It was a good show.
It's a good one, and it'll be interesting. Look, we got plenty of great stuff. We didn't even get to Francis Ngannou and John Jones coming to face. We'll do that on the next episode. But it's always something going on, and with these shows going on, that's always something that we're going to come back and talk about. But it's been fun. I'm definitely tuning in on Tuesdays to watch it on ESPN. But it's been fun. But yeah, great show as always, my man.
Absolutely. And you guys stay tuned in right here on Franchise Sports Media for the main event. We got International Fight Week coming up. We got UFC 290, 291. So much on going in. We haven't even talked about boxing, Crawford, Spence. There's so much going on. Please tune in. We'll be right here as always. And as always, we are your hosts. I am Griff Kemp.
Kalani Lure.
Until next time, fight fans. Peace.